Oh, behind that. My chairs, it's not stable, it's not here. That's okay. Sarah will fix it.
All right, Mary, wanna start the meeting? We're good.
The meeting is called to order. I'd like to announce that there will be an opportunity for members of the public to speak at the end of the meeting. Sarah, please call the roll.
Yes, for the record, the State Highway Commission is assembled in Alliance at the Holiday Inn Express. The date is Friday, June 24th at 8:30 a.m. I do have a copy of the Open Meetings Act if anyone's interested. Mr. Koppel,
Present.
Mr. Fagerlin,
Present.
Mr. Gertis,
Present.
Commissioner Hawks.
Here.
Commissioner Kindig,
Here.
Commissioner Leaf Green is not with us today. Commissioner Wolpert.
Here.
We have a quorum.
The next order of business is approval of the May 20th, 2022 meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Sarah, please call the question.
Commissioner Koppel,
Yes.
Mr. Fagerlin,
Yes.
Commissioner Gertis,
Yes.
Commissioner Hawks,
Yes.
Commissioner Kindig,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wolpert.
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce some very great people that we have met while our being here in Alliance. I'd like to thank Alliance Mayor Mike Giffney for dinner, and also Chelsea Heinen. They arranged a great dinner last night, a very enjoyable dinner at West End. Thank you so much. And then I'd also like to introduce Deb Cottier, and she is the chairman of the Heartland Express. Thank you for coming. Thank you very much. Thank you for the nice breakfast that you served.
You're welcome.
Next on our agenda are remarks from our Deputy Director, Mo Jamshetty. Mo?
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. This is really a nice room where we can have a good discussion. We're all close. Thank you all for being here, taking the time. Senator, thank you for joining us. Senator, Director Selmer couldn't be here today. He had previous engagement. He's up in Minnesota doing some bike riding. I think it's planned every year he does that, so he couldn't be here. So I'm glad to be here and represent the department. Before I get started, I want to introduce some of the DOT folks that they are here. We have Khalil Jabber, our Deputy Director for Engineering. Doug Hovitt, your district engineer out in the Panhandle. Scott Sorensen, our district construction engineer. All the orange cones out here is all his fault. Um, Shannon Ankeny is our director of communications back there, and Sarah, who sets all of these up, works with Shannon. Thank you very much, Sarah. And soon we're going to hear from Doug and his group about the construction and what's going on in District 5 and Panhandle, bring everybody up to date on progress that we're making. But the director asked me to share a couple of items with you all since our last meeting, some updates on the things we're working on. First and foremost, most of you know that we're hard at work trying to understand and execute the new infrastructure bill. We're getting calls all the time about what does that mean? How much money are we getting? What are we going to do with the so-called extra money that we're getting? Well, as you know, we're probably getting around 30% more formula fund money, and but the new bill also creates an opportunity to apply for a whole host of new programs and new grants for both locals and the state. So there is a lot in that bill that we still are trying to unpack to see what it is and how it's going to impact us. Certainly, the next 5 years, as we're putting together our 1 and 5 year plan that should be published next month soon, there's going to be a lot more money in those years for the next 5 years. Does more money necessarily means more project? Well, that's really remains to be seen. I always tell people, money doesn't build projects, people do. And as long as our construction firms, our contractors, if you will, if there are a finite number of them out there, they're not expanding, it's hard to expect more resources out there. But so some of that 30% we expect going to go to some kind of inflation, but we hope to do more projects and meet the needs of the state. One of the interesting programs that this new infrastructure bill has is the electric charging stations. We are getting about $6 million a year for the next 5 years to spend on putting these electric chargers across the state. But before we do that, the Federal Highway Administration requires us to provide a plan. In fact, the plan is due a little over a month to the Federal Highway Administration to basically tell them how are we going to do this? How are we going to accomplish this? The plan itself is going to first concentrate on I-80 corridor, of course. That's where most traffic goes through, but then it'll expand to other places. There's still a lot of unknowns about this program. For example, there's a Buy American clause in there, which all the charging stations that we purchase are going to be, they have to be manufactured in the United States, which is a great thing. However, all we know of only 2 manufacturers nationwide that make those. Whether they can meet the needs of 50 states. I mean, we're a small state with 6 million a year. Imagine being in New York, California, Texas. So whether they can meet all of that need remains to be seen, but they're ramping up. They're trying to do the best they can. We feel that about the best we can do is start next spring. We're going to see some activity in that area. We get some projects going. We're going to use our 3P probably legislature that just got passed, maybe help public-private participation in this endeavor to see how we can do this. We're good at building roads and bridges and what have you. Charging stations are a little out there for us. We're trying to learn as everybody else is, and what's included. I know the cities and others have been doing a lot of private work to putting these stations up some places, but when you're dealing with federal funds and federal requirements, it's a whole new ballgame on how to use these funds. So stay tuned on that one. The other topic I like to share with you is the governor last week had helped us celebrate the opening of the statewide operations center in Omaha. As you may know, building and maintaining a highway is one thing, operating them under all kinds of weather and incidents and what have you is another thing. So this center in Omaha will be handling the entire state, all 8 districts, get us through the incidents, get us through the winter ops, get us through congestion and construction zones. So we'll be open 24/7. The operators will be using over 360 cameras across the state to monitor traffic. We have dynamic message signs that we can send the drivers the information they need well in advance before they come to the scene of an accident, so they can make best decisions, maybe get off alternate routes and do what they have to do for the safety of traveling public. So this center being open 24/7 is really a good safety thing for the state. So we're very, very proud of it. The other thing I like to share with you is, as we were talking last night at dinner, we're having a difficult time keeping and hiring people. The mayor shared with me that businesses in town are doing the same thing in Omaha, Lincoln, everywhere you go. This is just a tight labor market, less than 2% unemployment. We're sort of kind of stealing from one another throughout the state. So we're having an unprecedented number of vacancies right now at the department, and it's hard to provide the services that we people have come to used to getting from us when we can't get the people hired. But again, this is unprecedented times. Everybody's going through it, and we're struggling through it. We will hopefully get over it somehow. I think COVID brought this up to us for some reason. After COVID, people decided not to work, or whatever happened. But I'm going to put a plug in for the DOT. If y'all looking for work, we got work for you. But anyway, despite all these challenges, I think we keep plugging along. We're doing what we have to do. There are other challenges like inflation, cost of material. We can't buy paint just to paint the highways. There's not enough out there. And when you find them, they're 3-4 times more expensive per gallon right now. So we have other materials. Our contractors are challenged. Their suppliers are not guaranteeing steel supplies and other things. So there's a lot of challenges, of course, the labor shortage and everything else, but we keep going. Despite of that, I'm glad to see when we were driving up here to see the progress on Harlan Expressway, and we're going to keep working on it. And I think Doug is going to give us some update of the Super 2 going north and other segments of the Harlan Expressway, which is very, very important to us, and we're committed to make it happen. One of the most popular projects, seems to me these days, is for those people who drive I-80 all the time, is the guardrail that we're putting in the middle of the median. I must have gotten so many calls as they saying, "Why are you building a cart path in the middle of the interstate? That's not a golf course." I said, "No, that's not a cart path. That's a foundation for the cable guardrail that we're putting there." The segments that we're piloting this project on in the last 5 years has had over 140 vehicles entering into the median, and many of those actually made it to the other side. And we've got 5 fatalities in the last 5 years in that area. So we're hoping that this will eliminate that crossing to the other side. So that project, we're getting a lot of, the media has been calling us all the time, and we're giving a lot of interviews, but hopefully that'll be successful. But, you know, regardless of what we put out there, how many guardrails, how many cable guardrails, how much we put safety at the top of our list, we still can't seem to do anything about the distracted drivers. This year, as of today, we have 120 people who died on our highways. That's 22% over the average, 5-year average at this time. Of course, summer is here, people are gonna travel a lot more. So we can do so much as engineers and DOT folks to make it safe, but if you know anybody, tell them to buckle up and put the phone in the back seat. That's really a lot of the incidents when after we do our investigation, people would have their head down or do whatever. So please do your part. And that concludes my comments, and I'll be happy to answer any of the questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jamshidi. Any questions for him at the moment? If not, I'd like to welcome Senator Erdman. Thank you for joining our meeting today. Do you have any comment you would like to make this time?
I just appreciate you having a hearing, a meeting here, so we can listen to what the updates are going to be. Appreciate it. Especially this office spot. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Senator. It's our pleasure to be out at Alliance. As a commission, we try to have outstate meetings on the one year. It's the odd districts. We have 8 districts in our commissioner districts in the Highway Commission. And then in the even, we will go to the other parts of the state. So it's really nice to be able to see other parts of the state. Nebraska is kind of widely diversified state, so it's just kind of nice to be out and see the other districts. 47. Okay, thank you. With that, I would like to introduce Doug Hovitt. He is the District 5 engineer, and Doug has a presentation for us of what's going on at District 5.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's nice having dinner with everybody last night. Chelsea, thank you for helping us arrange that. Thank you guys, Seth, for showing up and joining us. That was really appreciated. Welcome, everybody. I see a lot of like friendly faces that I remember and have seen before, and then there's some of you folks that I've just been recently acquainted with. I'm going to give you just a little rundown. There we go. So we're going to do like a little welcome back, right? Because you mentioned that the commission alternates years of visiting each district. It has actually been 4 years because of COVID that we've actually met in this type of a venue. We've actually been face to face. So that's really kind of, for me, a nice thing. I'm more of an extrovert than, some, and I like the human interaction more than just like viewing everyone on videos. So a little about myself. I've been with the department for about 25 years. I grew up in Scottsbluff. I went to the University of Wyoming and have been out here in the district since 2003. I started as a construction engineer, and then in 2014, took over as the district engineer. So a brief intro with regard to the Panhandle, where we've got 11 counties.
Sorry.
Okay, so this basic, hopefully the text is large enough for everybody to read. I'm not going to read it to you, but with the range of, you mentioned the diversity of the state, right? Well, we've also got diversity within the district. So we've got 100 and some, about 101 miles, 102 miles of interstate, got 75 miles worth of expressway, got a kind of a different, I guess I had a different version that actually showed the split between asphalt and concrete. If you're a nerdy person like myself, that matters to you, travelers, you know, we just want smooth roads, right? We've got 150 employees within the district. That is split roughly 100 and about 100 roughly on our maintenance side. We've got 30 odd on our construction side, and then we have the remainder that are either administration or don't quite fit exactly into those two cuts. They're scattered throughout the district in population areas to best serve travelers. We've got 4 construction offices and in those 11 sites. Now, even though we have had a lot of change take place, you know, with COVID and all these other weirdness things that we're dealing with in our own individual lives, a lot of the stuff that we do has always been the same. Our role as the DOT is to serve the taxpayers, right? And so I kind of, in my mind, kind of compartmentalize those into the taxpayers as citizens. So that could be any person in the state that well, either pays taxes or is, you know, the children of the taxpayers, like my kiddos, or it's just the travelers that might be traveling through the state. Both of which have kind of a little bit different different emphasis, at least as I kind of categorize it here. So the taxpayers, the serving our citizens, we've got fiscal responsibility to them. We owe it to them to communicate. The travelers, they are primarily, our focus with them is certainly on the safety aspect and then planning. So of those 4 that I just noted, fiscal responsibility, we want to approach it with like a business mindset. So as I'm a dirty engineer for the department, but my family, we also have a business. And so I've kind of grown up in that, developed that entrepreneurial mindset, right? So we want to make sure that we're looking out for, is identifying what's most important. And since the department's not going out of business tomorrow, we want to make sure that we're looking at the long term for our solutions, right? There's a lot of different pavement strategies as an example, but we want to make sure that we're optimizing, doing the right pavement strategy at the right time to extend the life as best we can and not put money where it's ineffective as best we can. We want to have a pragmatic approach because there's certainly certain things that you could do, but maybe it makes sense not to at that time. So we want to approach things thoughtfully. Our lives are all complicated personally, right? Well, same with the department. We've got a lot of competing interests, a lot of different things that, depending on who the person is, they all have different perspectives, right? And so each one of those different perspectives tends to, each one of those lenses kind of tweaks how you look at things. And so we're trying to figure out the best balance between those. And then also adapting to the revenue changes and our cost changes. So if we get, as Mo said, we could get more money, but money doesn't necessarily build projects, people build projects. So just having more revenue or more income coming in does not necessarily mean that we can, you know, hustle up and get another project in there. Now, we do have some strategies that I'll talk about a little bit as far as the planning to make sure that we do have projects that are ready. So that way, if we had more revenue come in, that we can pull those off the shelf and react quickly to it. But we're also having to consider cost changes. So as Mo had mentioned, our materials costs have changed. Diesel has changed. That affects the price of shipping goods, materials, items from one location to another. And we also have, Mo had mentioned the paint. I don't know if everybody remembers, but a year ago or so, Texas had a freeze. And that freeze, where they're not prepared for freezes, stalled some of their production in some of their chemical plants. One of those chemical plants produced resin for the paints. That delay there for this one place that never freezes actually affected nationwide paper prices. And so there's some of those types of things that are possible, but not really things that we can predict, right? And so we have to just adapt to those and pick a plan and just move forward with it and just adapt as we go. For customer communication, we want to be transparent, consistent, and timely. So Mo had mentioned with the SOC, if there's an accident on Grand Island, if we can push information to you, whether it's through an app on your phone, whether it's through a changeable message board on the interstate, whether it's radio, whether it's Twitter, pick your flavor, we can get information to you so you as the traveler can make better decisions. So that way, as you're traveling on the interstate, you can decide, well, maybe I want to avoid this storm. Maybe I want to just go ahead and have lunch and let that thing pass or whatever. Those types of things are important for us as travelers, and it reduces confusion, it reduces frustration, and it's our effort to try to make the traveling experience better. We also try to find out what our customers are needing. So we do that different ways. One is venues like this, where we've got folks from the public come in, they can say, hey, you know what, this is important to me. I'd like you guys to address that specifically. We have community involvement. Now I put community involvement not necessarily as like a venue like this, but more of like informal venues. Karen and I have known each other through a lot of different events, Leadership Scottsbluff as an example. Some of those types of things where, because I'm in the community, or a lot of our staff are volunteer fire department members all throughout the state, right? And so that community involvement, that presence that we have in our communities, so communities are our homes. And so people can go up to somebody in the department, see them, interact with them, if they've got questions, they can have that conversation. That's another mechanism that we use to gather information so that way we can set expectations and also to find out what's important to our customers. The contact us formats and social media are both kind of similar in a sense because it's locations where people can reach out to the department through email, Twitter, phone, and just say, hey, my name is Doug and I'm concerned about this. The traveler safety is kind of broken into two categories, generally speaking. One is our maintenance activities. That can include roadside maintenance, mowing, tree removal, things like that, that actually physically remove hazards. Snow removal during winter. And our folks also do a lot of our own repair. So we do big projects with contractors. And we maintain smaller items with our own staff. So that could be crack sealing, be paving small segments, it could be armor coating, some bridge repair, some pavement repair. But we also deal a lot with the next two, which is like I guess the next three, accidents, which are a little bit unforeseen, where our staff will actually come out, flag traffic for law enforcement, for first responders that are responding to crash scenes. And then the last one, which is fire, flood, and tornadoes, so natural disasters. In 2019, everybody's probably heard that we had some flooding, right? Shut down at one point between the bomb cyclone and the flooding, 3,000 miles of Nebraska's 10,000 miles of highway. Our Department of Transportation staff was instrumental in getting people around, coordinating the contractors to come in to do the work, getting through all of the planning, the environmental partners that we have to work with, all those obligations and getting through those things. That was a big lift for the department. It was entirely unexpected. And then that's not even including the cash flow difficulties and trying to figure out how to pay for it. For construction, work zone delineation, taking people through work zones as safely as possible. And then also system improvements, and that can be things to give information, variable message, variable speed limit signs, the changeable message boards that Mo mentioned, those types of things that actually help people make the best decision they can in a timely manner. Our maintenance staff, the 100 and some folks that we have on our maintenance staff, like I said, we do a fair bit of work during the summers to kind of prepare the roads, keep them in good condition for the travelers. Winter is hard out here sometimes, you know. It gets pretty cold, it gets pretty hot. Those two combinations, those two extremes in temperature, they kind of wreak some havoc on our pavements. Because if we were just dealing with heat, we could figure that out. We could just deal with cold, figure that out. Those extremes are really kind of a tricky thing. And so that requires us to maintain those to be able to keep that condition higher longer instead of like letting it degrade and trying to bring it back up. It's important that we do that. Have a lot of strategies there. The maintenance staff is also responsible for our snowstorm crash response. And those things are difficult to predict what we would need in budget, but they're instrumental in serving. So I'm going to turn this over to Scott now. Scott's going to go through, Scott's our construction engineer. And so he's going to talk about our upcoming construction project, this construction season.
Well, like Doug said, I'm the construction engineer. I've been in the district now, this is my 5th construction season. Prior to that, I worked in Lincoln in the traffic engineering division. Really enjoyed my time out in the district. It's a fun place to live and be, and not deal with the humidity back in Lincoln. So those of you that traveled from Lincoln know what I'm talking about. It's nice to enjoy the air climate out here. So I'm going to give a kind of brief rundown of our construction projects that are supposed to be going this summer and will eventually be going this summer. Some have been finished. Some are still waiting for the contractor to mobilize it in, because all of our asphalt projects for this summer were all awarded to Warner. They were the low bid for all of them. So they only have so many people, like we've been talking about. We might have money, but we can only build whatever the contractor has staffing to build. So I'm just going to go through all of these, just 1 through 20 here. So the first one is the variable speed advisory signs. Those are down on the interstate. So if you've been on the interstate recently and you've seen red and blue conduit sticking out of the ground, that is for these variable speed advisory signs that are going to be going in. We are currently waiting on the poles, on signs, on transformers from the power companies to actually get power to these sites. So it's going to be 8 months, I think, is what the power company was saying for their transformers to actually get power to these. And we will hopefully have them online by next summer. Then Sonolta Lodgepole, that one was already completed. That was just a crack seal project, super easy, super fast, and so it has been taken care of. The Northern and Central District 5 programs and the Southern and Central District 5 programs are ADA curb ramps, like the name would imply. Those are also now completed. Then Sydney Link was on L17J, which is just north of the interstate in Sydney, and that project is also now completed. It was a carryover from last summer. Most of the project was done last year. They had some finishing work to do this summer, and it's all taken care of. Wyoming State Line East was the same thing. Had some carryover work from last year. It is now finished. In Mitchell and North is going to be asphalt work, some bridge work, and then we're also going to upgrade pedestrian crossing at the high school in Mitchell, and that will be starting. We actually have the pre-con for that on Monday, and so the contractor will be in and starting that here hopefully in a couple weeks. Dalton North, that one will be hopefully sometime in the summer. The contractor needs to submit a delayed start date for that. It'll be one of the last ones that get to this year if they get to it this year at all. And then Colorado Line to Chapel and Oshkosh South will also have their pre-cons on Monday. Since it's the same contractor, we get to do a pre-con for summer projects all at the same time. It's more efficient for everybody, and it's just nice and simple to just go through all the pre-cons at the same time. Pretty Avenue East, right here in Alliance, that one is done. That was also a carryover from last year. I think city is pretty happy with how that turns out. I think it's been a big improvement going through town here on Highway 2. And then we have the District 5 DMS board. That will be one board down right on the eastern edge of our district on I-80. In Gordon South, which finished up about a month ago, then that one is now finished. Bronson East is our I-80 reconstruction project. We are almost done with the subgrade stabilization for that, so they're going to be moving in the concrete plant next week, and then they're hopefully going to start paving the second week of July, and so you'll see some new concrete going down on the interstate. Agate North and South is just up there on Highway 29, and it's just a mill and fill, pretty simple, but it is kind of unique just because in the area there are potential fossils. So the university is going to come out and do some investigation at the borrow site that we have for that project to see if we can find any fossils and get some cool stuff in the university on that project. Then L62A North on 35, that is part of the Heartland Expressway, which I think most of you drove on to get here. And you are on the new concrete lanes, which are done, and you can see them doing the asphalt work on the northbound lanes, which is Mill 4, Fill 6. So there's a lot of asphalt that's going down on those 14 miles of pavement. So they are working as fast as they can to get that done as soon as we can, so we can get all 4 lanes open from Alliance down to the junction. Then we have Banner Morrill County line to Bridgeport. That one is underway right now with some bridge repairs, and then we'll get to the asphalt. I believe once Warner is done with 35. So Warner not only has all of the asphalt projects, then they also were as a prime contractor. Then they were the subcontractor to IHC Scott, which is the prime for the 385 project. So they are doing legitimately all of the asphalt in our district for this entire summer. The Crawford West is on our list for this year, but it has already been pushed to next year, so that will not be built until next year, which is the same situation with Scottsbluff North. And then Sydney Interchange lighting. You may or may not have noticed, we have one of the high mast towers at the Sydney Interchange is currently laying on the ground because it was waving back and forth like this in the wind several years ago. So it is going to be replaced along with all of the lighting at the interstate at that interchange with shorter towers because we've just been having issues with our high mast towers all over the place. So we're going through systematically, pretty much statewide, right? Yeah, statewide. So that is our construction program for this year. That was a quick and dirty overview of that. Does anybody have any questions about any projects in particular?
Any guess on when L62A? I mean, I know he says Warner and working hard, and I saw that, but can you give us an estimation?
So we're actually going to meet with the PM this afternoon. Once we're done here, we're actually going to talk to them, try to find out if that, like a time window that we can actually potentially, what Devin and I were talking about, ribbon cutting, those kinds of things. Celebrating the project completion. Yeah, that's how we guess. See if I can back my head. Celebrating those projects that are meaningful to the region matter. And so we'll find a better, more accurate time for you. But right now we're thinking probably September-ish is, because construction, September-ish. Thank you. Any other questions other than Cliff?
I have a question. I hadn't heard this term before, short towers and tall towers. Could you just enlighten somebody that don't know anything?
Sure. So some of the interchanges, so just out here along the highway, you'll see just a regular, what you consider like a light. They're roughly 40 feet tall. They'll have a light head that comes out broadcast. The towers that Scott's referring to are like 140 feet tall. They might have 6 or 8 luminaires around the perimeter. And there might only be 4 or 5 or 4 or 6 or so at an interchange. And they're high mast, so they're like a super tall tower. Well, because of the wind blowing and some other, there were some of the towers that were showing some signs of fatigue. We go out and we test them, make sure that, just as a preventative thing. And we noticed that some of them had some indications of some fatigue, some cracking. We took those down, and now there's a program to replace those with something that's a little bit shorter, but still
if I can
device.
add more to that, actually, there are about 100 of those that were designed back in the 90s, where the standards were a certain thickness of the metal at the bottom of the poles was acceptable. And later we found out, and the standards have changed, and all the new ones we've built in the last 20 years, 15 years, all meet the new standards that withstand that kind of a fatigue loading. The old ones, they were thin walled, we call them, and we are systematically bringing them down as our inspectors catch some cracking on the bottom, so they don't fall. So this was a design flaw that not just in the state of Nebraska, all the other DOTs that we follow the same set of standards when we're designing these. The design philosophy has changed to take care of this. So we think we got a few more yet to bring down and then replace, as we go in the next 4 or 5 years.
So we're going from 130 feet in some cases high down to,
We're going, remember, the taller these things are, the more coverage they can have,
right.
the more susceptible they are to fatigue cracking. So we've kind of decided about 80 foot to 100 foot is the maximum we want to go. If you go to I-80 project we just built in District 6, the one by 76, you don't see any high mast towers. You see a whole lot of regular, strategically placed lighting that does the trick, but you have to put more of them in there. So, yeah.
Okay, so that was where I was leading to. We're not sacrificing safety.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. So if you got a 140 footer, you replace those with maybe 280 footers.
Sure.
But to get the same coverage.
Thank you.
Any other questions on?
Expand a little bit on L62A particular, just to know.
So I'll cover that in the next slide. Scott's got just for this construction season, but yeah, we'll address that.
So 2023 and beyond. So the red ones are projects that are going to be built next year, and then blue ones are projects that are programmed that will be in 2024 through 2028. And I'm not going to talk through all of these. I'm just going to hit on a couple that are fairly unique. So 1 and 2 down in the bottom right corner, that's on Highway 30. We're going to be installing some new box culverts on that to address some road overtopping issues that we've had down there in the past. So there will be a detour in place for those. It'll be a short-term detour while we install the precast box culverts, concrete box culverts for those. And then up north of Shadron on 35, that is going to be a Super 2. So that one has been programmed, so it is now going to be going through the design phase. So that'll be, I think, the next section of Heartland Expressway that we get built. The reason that we're going to do that one first is because we have some subgrade issues on the shoulders currently, and instead of going through and fixing those, and then in 10 years, 5 years, whatever it is, going through and doing the expansion, we decided why not just go through, do the Super 2 now, take care of all that at the same time, and not do 2 separate projects.
So Scott, when that gets to the state line where it becomes 4-lane, will you build that entrance to the 4-lane?
I would think so.
Transition.
That it'll just widen. I-80 reconstruction are the other big topics for us. We will have Bushnell to West Kimball is going, it is in the December letting, I believe, of this year. And so it'll be constructed next year. And depending on the contractor, they may try to do it all in 1 year. So on Bronson East this year, IHC Scott is our contractor, and they're actually trying to pave both sides of the interstate in one construction season, which I think will be the first time we've done that in Nebraska. So that is exciting, and it'll be pretty cool if they can actually pull it off. And so Kimball, Bushnell to West Kimball, I'm sorry, is the next one to go. And then we have West Kimball to East Kimball, which will be both of the interchanges at Kimball. So it'll reconstruct all of those. And then we have Sydney to Sunol, and that will actually not be a reconstruction because existing, we have an asphalt section and a concrete section. And so we're going to do an asphalt overlay on both sections so that we can not do a reconstruction and overlay and then do a reconstruction. We're just going to do an overlay, and then in 10 years, 12 years, we'll do just full reconstruction on both sides. So we don't have to mobilize in the contractor with the concrete plant on 2 separate occasions. We can just do it all in one shot. And that will actually be the end of our interstate reconstruction. So light at the end of the tunnel is in sight for us out here in District 5 with our interstate reconstruction. So those are the kind of highlights. If anybody has any questions about any of the other lines on the map. Otherwise, I will let Doug talk about.
Yeah, so this is the outline of the projects that Scott was just referring to for the upcoming construction, for next summer's construction. So, it does say,
Is this available anywhere, or can you send us this?
So-
It's on the program.
yeah, this will be in the program book. I normally have a fancy picture of the program book, but, not quite yet, stay tuned. But I was able to get this out of on this, it does show that, you know, we've got on this project, or this construction season is $85 million. And to put that into perspective, like we have, like I said, we have 30 odd people that work on our construction staff. So that's project managers, that's full-time construction technicians. Do all of our sampling, do all of our inspection, construction, surveying, those types of things. We do have a few summer temps that come and go on those projects, but that $85 million is actually managed by 30 folks. It's really, they really do a really good job. Put this up here by comparison. So on the earlier slide where I showed that, you know, the information on the district, we've got the panhandle is roughly 20% of the land mass of Nebraska. And in our area, we've roughly got 90,000 people. And sometimes, you know, we think like, oh man, all this stuff's going back to Lincoln. I just wanted to put this up there because realistically, we actually do quite a lot of work out here. Keep the highways in good condition, to keep commerce flowing, to keep commodities going from farm to market and market to final user. So, Heartland Express. So, I'm gonna hit we basically got kind of 3 roughly things. One is the L62A North project. That's the one that we drove up here. And Chelsea, I will totally hook you up with a whole bunch of this. If you like the whole slideshow.
Sure.
But you just say so. Yeah. Well, it'll be better than.
Jen's already working on it over here
Oh,
at the stage.
there
She's
you
already
go.
had my card out.
There you go. So this will be complete, I'm gonna say September-ish. This is, I think, when we're gonna actually, there'll still be some stuff that we'll probably be touching up, you know, but I think sometime in September is when we're kind of anticipating northbound traffic on northbound lanes, southbound traffic on southbound lanes. So that's probably pretty close. North of Alliance, as Scott had mentioned, we programmed the first Super 2 that's gonna go from Chadron from Highway 20 north to 385. So we're gonna, as those segments of 385 need addressed because of pavement condition, we will address those pavement condition and address the Super 2. So that way we are trying to be most efficient, as Scott had mentioned. If we go up north of Chadron and we address the shoulders, and then we don't address Super 2, that's probably not the best use of those earlier business model practices, being pragmatic and being thoughtful in our design.
Which, by the way, is exactly what the city would do 5 years ago. So,
When you say address, excuse me, address the situation, are you gonna be actually be doing construction on the passing place?
That's right. So the addressing that Scott was referring to north of Shadron is because of the soil types up there. They're pretty, they're kind of an expansive clay. So you've seen like sometimes it'll be like high and low, and it gets kind of just, it's kind of a tricky soil to mess with. We have sent our own staff out there to address the shoulder breakups that we see periodically. And we could do that from now until the cows come home. It needs a more robust to actually fix it. And so when Scott had mentioned we're going to address the shoulders up there, he was in part talking about the soil conditions, getting that so that way we've got a durable pavement. But on those segments of 385 from Alliance North, we're going to address whatever soil condition issues we have, as well as the pavement width for the Super 2.
Predominantly, Super 2 is gonna pertain to the passing lanes like you have coming out of Shattered and through the park
That's right.
on the hills.
Yes. So, well, and in some of the locations, like say from here north, there's locations where there's not really hills per se. You know, it's not like there's like a climbing difficulty for heavy trucks, right? But we also have, contract harvesters that come through, heading from Kansas, heading up to Canada. And they'll be having their train of, 15 or 20 different tractor trailers and implement campers and all that stuff. And so sometimes that is a congestion problem. And so this allows, and if you traveled in other states like Wyoming, Colorado, some locations, Montana, they'll have, a thing that'll say, passing lane in 2 miles, passing lane in 1 mile. It'll widen out, and then travelers can go around that safely without having to kind of take those chances that really can cause some severe problems.
I mean, just put something to the mayor. Next year, Mayor, we're gonna start what we call a course, establish this passing thing up, similar to what we did on North Platte. So as these projects are being programmed, you will already know where those passing opportunities are. Not the entire, and we'll do public involvement as we do that. So just, that probably will start next year.
So that answers your question. This should actually be September. When I wrote this slide,
I pushed it back. I'm sorry.
it was August.
It was originally August,
And now it'll be in September. But in September, we've got a consultant on board that has done other studies like this before. So this will take this for the group's benefit. This will go from Minutair, which is a community to the east of Scottsbluff, to the junction of the construction that you see now. So it's Minutair to the junction of 385. That will be a full 4-lane expressway, just like the segment from the line south. And we've got a consultant on board currently to have those corridor conversations. There'll be a meeting, I think it's the week of, it's still the September 8th, and it's same week, just a month later, to basically it's an open house. And so it'll actually so the purpose of the meeting is to come in. It's open to the public. We're soliciting, hey, this looks like a great idea, or wow, you guys are messed up. This is totally not what we need to do here. And then that way we can take those comments, bring them back, refine the design, and move forward with the project.
And this is prior to any right of way.
Oh, yes, no, we are some time from right of way, because you have to go through the idea of like, right, so everybody might draw a different drawing on their napkin as to what it looks like.
Property owners are calling saying, when's this gonna happen? When am I gonna have input?
Oh, and people have called for years, so, yeah. And I don't mean that like in a, well, no, So, so the purpose of the meeting is to solicit comment from the public, from whether it's just citizens that are interested in the project because they've heard about it for years, or if it's actually folks that own property and have a vested interest in which side the roadway goes on, or wants to know, like, what's the process, because maybe they own property on both sides. They want to know, okay, well, you're gonna have to purchase land, how do you do that? So we can answer some of those questions.
And also need some additional information.
So that was clear.
So we intentionally have generalized this. No, that we may have some. Because this actually estimates. Two things. To do NEPA, obviously that's a combination of the on the side south. Like, which side are you gonna be on? We don't know, but we are evaluating north side, south side, and no real alternative process. We also have irrigation, which we have jurisdiction, wetlands, state jurisdiction of. So it's a bit more complicated than we thought at the beginning. So what Doug is referring to is when we come out to the public and seek that input, just to gather that information, it will be incorporated into our documents. Once we complete all that, then we go into the final design and then start talking about property acquisition. But we'll share that information. Sorry, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
You're the presenter, so I have to apologize. Accept your apology.
When we built the port lane here, I remember attending a meeting, and there was an app that showed where the highway was going to go, where the turnouts were and all that. Give us an opportunity to have input where there's a turnout needed here because the guy enters his pasture here. You have that same kind of map drawn in September for us to view?
Yes. Yeah.
Won't get to that much detail.
Well,
We'll have options.
so yeah, it might be talking like a couple different things here. I'm gonna try to interpret, but we're gonna have, Phil mentioned, we're gonna do like the north side option, south side option, right? So if we have north side option and you have property on the north side, because like if everything goes to the north side, the south side's the same. Those access points may adjust a little bit, but if you're at certain locations, it may not adjust. But the north side, however, will be entirely likewise, south side option, south side be different from north. We won't have detail to a point where this property will come down and have this, go over to here, because we don't know which one we're going to go to, and it doesn't make sense to develop both of them to a high level until you're sure which side you're going to go to. So there will be a line, roughly speaking, that'll say, okay, this is where we're anticipating going on this particular side. And then if you own property on that, that will be an opportunity to say, hey, you know what, I access this piece over here and I own this other piece over here. What options are there? And so we can kind of roughly talk about it, but it won't be, to Sarah's point, it won't be developed to a point where you say, oh, well, you're going to have your access 400 feet from this location.
Question I most often get is right in, right out only. Not for them, that'd be a problem.
Well, right in, right out. I mean, so there's some other options that are available that we've used in like District 3, I believe. But it won't exclusively necessarily be. If you look at south of town here, there's locations where there are median breaks, and so those kind of things, or between Scottsbluff to Mitchell. Both 4-lane expressways both have locations like at county roads or at certain locations where there are median breaks that do allow right in or full access. It would depend a little bit on the circumstances of that drive's location, site distance.
So a couple miles from my house, we have two people on each side of the highway, about halfway between the two intersections. So I have to turn right, make a U-turn, go to Scottsbluff. When I come home, I gotta go to the intersection, turn right in, right out, don't work.
Yeah, and like I said, depending on how that is, it may be a frontage road that connects up to joint landowners. maybe there's 2 or 3 property owners, that's an example, that maybe own narrow strips. Right? We wouldn't have 3 driveways, 1 for each of those, but we might combine those 3 property access locations into 1 point. And then, move them to, allow, or purchase right of way to allow access of all 3 to a urban point.
So they go to Sell Mountain.
Depends on the market, interest rates. We
If I can add a little bit to that, Senator, we've been building these kind of highways, expressways for a long, long time. And we've learned a lot of lessons through the years. It's always a balance between safety of people who have a 4-lane highway that they think they can just go down the road at 80 mile an hour in some cases, and the safety of the people who live along and their access that they need to get to where they need to go. There's a balance. So if every intersection became a full access intersection, then you just lost your 4-lane capacity for people to go through. And then the people who get impatient, it causes incidents. In fact, in a lot of the areas that we find issues, places like the district, Highway 81 and District 3, where we put an RCUT in their one location, while other places, we go later back and we do some changes to reestablish that balance. So when we come down here, we're gonna look to see how many accesses are there, how many properties are there, what are the logical places where we can maintain that balance, that people feel comfortable driving 65, 70 down the road, and yet the people who are entering to go a left turn on their front property, they feel comfortable, there's enough sight distance. So we put those in a strategic locations. So yes, one owner may have to take a right in, right out for maybe a third of a mile and then go turn around and go back. But we've got wealth of information, and we'll maintain that balance. Are we going to be putting it everywhere where everybody wants? Well, probably not, because then that will then negate the whole idea of building a 4-lane facility.
I recommend showing up to the meeting,
There'll be a lot of people.
which is good. That's like the
It
purpose.
never made sense to me to build a 4-lane highway from Kimball, Miniature, and stop, and then build a highway from L62 north. I'm gonna build a pipeline, and I have a 1-foot pipeline, I build a 3-foot pipeline, I don't build 3-foot pipeline for 70 miles. They go to a 1-foot pipeline, they go back to a 3-foot. I never understood why we didn't continue on from Kimball all the way past 62A and then build this project up. That didn't make any sense.
We don't disagree with you, Senator. Unfortunately, we will also received a lot of earmarks specific. We had no choice but to try to put the money to use. That's really where we got caught. I don't remember the Senate, be writer or I just don't remember who. Joe Lance took the initiative on that. So it was a lot of money to bring to the table. And that's really where we had no choice. In fact, most of the legislature gave us that 15 million, which ultimately we got 5 million to match that.
But on a good note, good connector. So
A lot of bridges built.
there's a lot of bridges. And there's a boatload of partners, because we've got, as Khalil mentioned, we've got all the irrigation districts. 9 Mile Creek is a trout stream. Got all these nuances that all have their voice at the table. In addition to, dozens and dozens of landowners and homeowners. And those are, there's a lot of, it's important that we approach this systematically, because a lot of the conversations are sensitive.
You got issues on that border right there. The 9 Mile Creek was right next to the highway.
Yes.
Just Miniature on the north side. You live on my place. Farmers Irrigation Canal, right up next to the highway there. So you've got issues dealing with, of course, that really impact what you do.
Yeah, well, and so to that point, the construction of the highway, working within all of the restrictions, like for example, the irrigation district. There's certain windows where water comes and it has to come. So if we do new bridge or new box culvert or something like that, that has to be noted and done in that certain. Try to be respectful of all of those types of things with our projects. You know, like for example, in the southern part of the district where we harvest, you know, it's like we tell the contractors, like, look, this bridge has to be open to traffic from, you know, whatever the third, fourth week in July, roughly speaking, to second, third week in August, roughly speaking. And that is to try to limit the impact of the highway construction. Highway construction is inconvenient, but it only really can be done during the summer. Turns out so does harvest. So we're trying to juggle a lot of different things and being sensitive to all of those. So we'll see you in September. What's that?
See you in September.
Did not.
You knew you were supposed to do something.
I'm a visual artist.
More of a dog.
Yeah, not performing. One of the things that is reality that all of us deal with, whether it's in our own businesses, whether it's apartment, whether it's, you know, you can see these difficulties kind of prop up in different locations. And that's like, for us, we see a lot of staffing challenges. A lot of that has to do with, we've got folks who have been with the department for quite a while, have decades and decades of experience, and they decided they're going to retire. Then that person that's next in line has maybe got a decade of experience, and now they're forced to kind of like step up into this new role. And then you get somebody, there's no somebody there. So we're having some difficulties trying to find those kinds of things. That's the same, it's tough all over, but it's one of the things that we're having to contend with. Competition for those talented people. People who hire talented people recognize talented people. We want those talented people to be on our team, same as everybody else. And so there is a high demand for competence, and we're doing our best to find those folks. Training and turnover is one of also that's a challenge for the department for the reasons above. And then cost challenges. I already discussed that, so that's I'm not going to rehash that. I am going to talk about accomplishing our mission. Live out here in the Panhandle, tough fighters. And so despite those challenges, we are intent on figuring out ways to work through those difficult conversations, work through the stuff that is inconvenient. We all face this in our own lives where, because of Twitter and some of these other sites where complicated ideas are digested down to a 10-second bite-sized piece of information, even though it's complicated, we've got to do it. But we're going to do it. Don't have any choice. So I'm here for any questions you might have. Scott will take the tough ones.
Second segment, when you open it, how long after you open it, what will 7?
Yeah, the intention has been to address that. I don't think we have any need for any, I'm unaware of any study. Right? We're just gonna.
It's already
So-
said.
It took a year, I think, before you moved to military, Scott's love up. I don't think you would immediately said why I asked.
My intention is to move to 7. Unless somebody, in one of the suits with tie.
No, the mayor, the statute is there for us, so once the 4-lane is in effect, no different than the Super 2. Signs will go up, speed limit 27 miles an hour. The other signals, we didn't have that statute in place, it was the old speed limits.
Fire 6 times.
Not one of them. Okay, any questions?
Thanks, Doug.
Anybody online?
Thank you very much, Doug and Scott, for that presentation. Really enlightened those of us that aren't as familiar with your district. as we should, just because we live other places. But I think it's really important for our commission to know what is going on in every district. And I really appreciate your time and your presentation very much. Thank you. With that, we will move to the public input part of the meeting. Sarah, are there any letters to be read into the record?
I have not received any.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. And now, those of you who would like to have public input, if you would stand up at your seat. Normally we have a podium, but we don't today. But you would need to stand where you are and spell your first and last name for the record before you begin your presentation. Are there any remarks from the public? Yes.
Last name Daphne, Dafney, Mike. This is just an observation for the future, because it's already been done. For your engineers, I think, to look at. Entrance into Alliance here, I've got several complaints and concerns, which I agree with. You're coming from the south, you're really coming uphill. We've got semis that are blowing through there, maybe slowing down or not, but once you get right to the filling station, you realize if you're in the right lane, you go into Shattern, you're caught. And so you make a dart over quickly in front of people. That interchange, I think, for future reference, you may look at doing something somehow different, maybe further out or something. Lane marking your notification.
So we might be, knowing that, we can talk to our traffic engineers and see if there's.
We've had several close and one accident there. Just, like I said, the last minute, you find out you're in the other lanes from reflexes, it's just go right away. So it is something to look at, I think, for future. Very.
Thank you, Mr. Dabney. Are there any questions from the commissioner? For Mr. Dabney? If not, we have another speaker.
Deb Cottier, DEB, COTTIER. I have the pleasure of chairing the Heartland Expressway Association Board of Directors. We have several of our members here. I hope most of you have had the opportunity to meet and visit with them. I guess if you all will just wave your hand so everyone knows who in the room are commissioners. And I think we've had one that left. I think Tim Garwood was here earlier as well. First of all, thanks for coming to Western Nebraska. Two things that I wanted to mention, and just for clarification, if there's a new commissioner that may not be aware, but the Heartland Expressway essentially runs from Lyman, Colorado to Rapid City, South Dakota, all the way through the Panhandle. We have a spur to Wyoming over toward Torrington. That is important to our relationship with the folks in Wyoming. But also in Colorado, we have several natural instances where the folks come from off of Highway 71. So we really cover northeast Colorado, all of western Nebraska, and then up into South Dakota. The second thing I wanted to mention in terms of references, that's the centerpiece of a 3-expressway system that we refer to as the Ports to Plains Alliance. And it essentially goes from Laredo, Texas to Saskatchewan, Canada. So we have an opportunity to participate with this alliance, which is the Ports to Plains Expressway, the Heartland Expressway, and then the Teddy Roosevelt Expressway, which is in the northern part of the United States. As we visited today, I'd like to remind people that Nebraska is one of, I think, the only state that does not have a north-south interstate. And so we don't have that conduit like we have I-80 going across east and west. We don't have that conduit in Nebraska that's the north-south route. We would like very much for that to be the Heartland Expressway. In other portions of the United States, they are looking very seriously about making those expressway areas eventually become interstates. If it were to get to the point where the traffic and the amount of trucks and people coming across this part of the world that we would need interstate standards, that would make it easier for us to then go to the Department of Transportation and say, we want to connect this interstate and that interstate and make it all one route. We in Nebraska recognize the importance of the route, as Doug described, as a way for people to get crops to and from, get their crops and their parts and whatever they need back and forth from the rural ag areas of our state. So we at this point do not advocate for an interstate, but just understand that we are part of this larger system, which if every car that came across the border at El Paso were to come this far north, every truck, we would need an interstate pretty darn quick. But the point I'm trying to make is that we are all part of this larger alliance and this larger corridor of traffic. So we work with them and we are members of the Coastal Plains Alliance. Wanted to invite all of you, if you've not been able to take a look at that. Their newsletter goes out monthly. You may subscribe to that. We can get it sent to you. Their annual meeting is coming up third week of September. It's in Big Spring, Texas. We always want to make sure that you know you're welcome and invited to attend any of that. Several of our board members will be going down for that conference this year. First one we've had in person in a number of years as well. And then the final thing I want to say is a thank you to the District 5 folks. They have been forthcoming with what they can do, what they intend to do. We have a great relationship that we've built over 25 plus years of working with both the department as well as our commissioner, who has been the same commissioner, Doug Leaping, for years and years. And it's really been a pleasure to work with all of the folks with the Department of Transportation when you have this long time in between projects, and you can actually begin to see the end of the project, and we are in fact doing what we told people we would do. It's important for those of us on the north end of this to know that there will be some work done on the Super 2 designation of the rest of that route. So to live in the northern edge of the state, when you drive 10 miles and you're on 4-lane, you drive 45 miles and you're on the 4-lane, we're the chunk in the middle that is not a 4-lane yet. And so we hope at some point after you get the Super 2 completed, we will need to add 2 more lanes to that and make it 4-lane all the way from Colorado to south. So we appreciate you being here, and just know if there is ever an issue or something that you need our help, that's one of the reasons we formed, is to become an advocate for this route and for the folks in Western Nebraska so that we can help you. If we had the opportunity to support an effort to get grant funding at the federal level, we're always happy to sign on that and visit with our congressional delegation about the importance of investing in Western Nebraska. So thanks again for coming, and don't hesitate to call. I've given my card to the folks, and if there's someone here that needs to talk to me specifically, I'm always available. I work at the Development Corporation office in Shattuck. Thanks for coming.
I was gonna relay this to you later. A couple of us had the Texas interstate conversation last night, and their words to me were, the state of Nebraska does not want to hear interstate connected this right now because it would stop everything right now, right?
We certainly understand that. We're in full support of that. We don't want, beat trucks and all of that on an interstate. It just doesn't work.
Thank you so much for your information and your comments. We appreciate that. Any questions from the commission?
I just have a question. Amongst all these groups that you're associated with, is there a forecast of traffic numbers coming from any of those associations?
The traffic forecasts coming out of the Ports to Plains Alliance in southern Texas are astronomical in terms of border crossings, particularly. And right now, if you come across the border at El Paso, you have the chance to take through Interstate 35 north, which is the parking lot, or you take a variety of 4-lane highways and or 2 lanes. So in that respect, and that's quite a way south of here. They could get to I-70 and go one way. They could get to I-80 and go a different way. So it's not all going to come as far north as we are.
Have they done a study that would include Nebraska filtering out those heavy traffic areas?
Not that includes Nebraska, that I'm aware of. The folks from North Dakota have a little different take on it because most of their heavy traffic is related to the Bakken oil field,
Right, right.
which right now is in a slope, I guess is the best way to put it. It's a boom and bust thing in Williston and western. They are building more interstate and more four-lane highway both in the state of North.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the commission? Not, our next presenter.
Hey, I'm Star, Starr, Lael, Lehl, and I just want to thank you for your time and coming out to Western Nebraska. And I had the opportunity to serve on the long-range transportation steering committee. I appreciated that, and I know you guys have your work cut out for you. Everything from the charging stations to try to figure out, how with these electric vehicles, how is, your department runs on gas tax, how is that all going to work? We talked about a lot of different things going, 20 years basically into the future. So I really enjoyed that opportunity. So thank you. The other thing is, I am the economic development director for the city of Scottsbluff, and I want to give kudos to Doug and whoever Doug worked with. We had the opportunity to host the Street Outlaws in Western Nebraska, and right during the pandemic, they were out in August, September, actually, 2020. They were racing. If you've ever seen it, it's called Street Outlaws. That's a show, reality show on Discovery Channel. And I'm not into that kind of thing. But anyway, we could tell by them being in our community, and thanks to the Highway Commission and state transportation, we actually got it approved to block off some lanes of the highway for these guys to race. But our lodging tax and our restaurants and all those different businesses, small businesses in our community thrived during that time because they were in our community for, anywhere from 2 weeks to a month, staying in the hotels, eating in the restaurants, made some great friends in the community. We made some people mad, I'll say that, but it worked out great, and thank you for that. And I look forward to maybe a more streamlined process, as now there is funding for filming and through the Nebraska Department of Economic Development, and maybe more of a streamlined process to use state highways for filming of. We have someone actually as a location scout in town right now looking to film a HBO series. So hopefully he finds that, and then those people will be in our community for a couple of weeks, filming in the hotels, eating in the restaurants. It's quite a business, and thank you for allowing that to happen in Western Nebraska. It was good for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Star. Are there any questions from the commission? If not, are there any other persons that would like to comment this time? Seeing none, I guess the remarks from the chair is I really appreciate your hospitality being here for this meeting. It's really good for us to, as individuals, to embrace what else goes on with roads in the Department of Transportation in the different areas in Nebraska. I want to reinforce your remark about the buckle up, phone down, buckle up. That is so important. I noticed I saw a few cars in the parking lot with that bumper sticker. Where are those available? Where can we get those?
Shannon can send you as many as you need.
Okay, I think that's really a good advertisement for the program, to see that bumper sticker, phone down. Because that, as you mentioned, really creates problems and then accidents when people are messing around with their cell phone. It's so easy to do. If a phone rings, your most natural reaction is to answer it, or if you forgot to give a message to somebody else, then you want to do it right away. Often you don't pull off to do that, you just do it. So we really need to emphasize that not only with the younger generation, sometimes the older one is just as guilty. So anyway, with that, again, I thank you for your time and for your coming. And that's all the bucks I have to say. Sarah, would you give us a public meetings calendar, please?
The next highway commission meeting will be in Nebraska City at the Arbor Day Lodge on August 26th, if anybody wants to join us. Otherwise, the public meeting that Doug mentioned for 385, we did push it back to September. As soon as I get approval from Federal Highways, we'll get a postcard out to you guys, let you know when that's ready to go. That's all I have.
Hey, thank you, Sarah. With no other business to come before the commission, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made to adjourn and the meeting is adjourned.
With you.